Okay, welcome back to the Founders Table. This is where we sit down with leaders who are transforming their industries through innovation, resilience, and thoughtful leadership. Today, I'm joined by Jane. She's the CEO and CFO of Accelerated Claims, a company that's specializing in motor vehicle and workers' comp claim recovery for hospitals and health systems. Jane, as I looked over like your LinkedIn and whatnot, you bring a rare blend of financial expertise, operational leadership, deep technology capability, and over your career, you supported organizations through periods of 50% year over year growth while simultaneously reducing debt, improving systems, and guiding just better decision making across the board. And I think that's very, very impressive. So I'm very excited to have you on the call, dive into your story, and just have a meaningful conversation. The first question I really like to start with is more on like your background and leadership journey. So the first question I have here is, you've held roles spanning finance, analytics, IT consulting, and now the CEO and CFO role. What originally drew you into the world of financial and like operational leadership?
Well, my first real grown-up job was an admin role in a real estate firm, a commercial real estate firm. And in that role, I had to keep the books. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize that I was a finance person or enjoyed that until I took on that role. And it really just kind of inspired me to learn more and really understand how the ins and outs of accounting and finance works. And that just inspired me over the years to continue that. And it just was a natural progression for me.
That's awesome.
Wasn't educated on it. It just happened in the role that I took it on. So,
So it's one of
um,
those things where you were already in like starting what you thought was potentially your career path, and then you landed into that specific role, which made you realize like, oh, I want to actually dive into this more.
correct. I was one that just no matter what job I took, I wanted to learn more. And when I learned something new, I really got excited about it. And the finance part was more as time progressed, the finance piece is more exciting to me, obviously than pure accounting, but
Sure.
started off in the accounting that led into finance. Yeah.
Love that. And
Yeah.
with like your early experience in like SAP analytics and business operations, did that shape the like decision maker that you are today?
Oh, absolutely. At SAP, I was over like a territory in the CRM world and customer data management. On the data management team is where I started. And then an opportunity came up to step onto a project implementing an internal process that we had in that territory building. And the software that it was actually specifically for business planning and consolidations. And so in learning that system is how I became a consultant and learned and really got to dive in and really work for some other organizations and learning the data and learning how to look at their financials and forecast and budget. And that was just that's how it progressed, just by stepping into a role.
I love that. And it's like it's really I feel like most people think they need to know every single step of their career and going in. And that's like a
Yeah.
prime example of like you step into something that you didn't expect to step into, but then obviously that's the path you ended up taking because you loved it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
So
the key is with volunteering and stepping into other things outside of your normal day-to-day role. And that's really where you learn and flourish and learn the things that you're good at and that you enjoy
I love
and what
that.
you're not good at and what you don't enjoy. So,
Exactly. It's all about just trying stuff at the end of the day.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so you've supported organizations through quite major growth phases. Is there like a lesson? I always ask if there's one lesson, but I feel like when you're at that scale of stuff, there's probably a few lessons. But is there
Mhm.
any one lesson or a couple lessons that has stayed constant, I guess, through every stage?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned in growth phase is to pay attention on, growing too fast.
Mhm.
Sometimes we can grow so fast that we miss marks, and it actually can put you in a really bad situation. So, really, kind of balancing that sweet spot of where that growth lies, where you can still maintain your performance and expectations for your customers, but also challenging yourselves and being innovative during that growth phase. So it's just really monitoring, really paying close attention to KPIs as you are in that growth phase, not being scared to spend sometimes, because sometimes we're always looking as a CFO, it's always looking at profits. But as a
Right.
CEO, I've learned you can't always look at the profits. You also have to look at the reinvestment. And so
Sure.
You just have to really kind of learn that balance and continuing communication with all your department heads and making sure that everyone is able to be successful in that growth. So as well as continuing to grow your teams from the bottom up. So when you're in growth phase, you have the leaders ready and on the bench to be able to jump in where needed. So that's been a lesson learned for us for sure.
That's awesome. And when you talk about growing too fast, that's something where definitely people who are either starting businesses or starting their career paths don't even consider that. They don't, they're like, oh, we can't grow too fast. We're just trying to grow. And that is a true statement. It's like you can grow too fast where you miss a lot of, one, you miss a lot of lessons along the way. But two, it's like you get to points where maybe what you have set up, your system or your company just can't handle the scale of the growth yet because you have to grow into it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think as an organization, we went through a super growth phase back in when I had first begun at ACI, and it was great, but even better now because we learned, and now we're always preparing for growth so that we're not going to be surprised, and we have that structure ready to go. So
I love that. And I'm curious, like when you say like preparing for growth, like what does that kind of look like? How would someone prepare for growth in a sense? Is it just making sure you have the right staff or right operations in place?
I think operational structures, policies in place, documentation on your processes, continuous leadership training, regardless if they're going to be leaders. We actually implemented a future leaders program internally so that we always have people on the bench that we know are ready to go.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that they necessarily are the right fit, or we also learn who's good and who isn't,
Sure.
are ready for that role. And then just communication, training. We have daily huddles with our teams. Things like that are so important. And also keeping everyone abreast of what's happening so that our team members aren't surprised when we say, okay, hold on, we're pivoting. We just got a few more contracts. Everybody's moving.
Right.
So we're always in communication with the teams. We try to be.
Love that. So I mean, going into technology and like data decision making, I guess how do you use data to more so guide smarter decisions inside ACI?
Well, we have so many dashboards that we built from internal and external that we share with our clients. So the internal dashboards we're monitoring, we do monthly calls with our leadership team. We do biweekly calls with our senior team, looking over these data points. We have QBRs that we do where our leaders present to us as the executive leadership group, so we know what's really happening with our customers.
Hmm.
They also have monthly calls with our customers so that we can get that feedback, and then using that data and looking at those KPIs really help drive when we see, okay, we really do need to add more staff to this team, or we need to come up with a better process for this, for whatever the circumstance may be in that state, because every state is obviously different. But the KPIs really help us drive where we want to invest in technology versus resources.
Of course.
And we're constantly monitoring that. And then obviously having a really strong IT team is important to help understand our business acumen as well, because they can actually understand the KPIs and help us brainstorm on different solutions to bring that to the table. So
Okay.
data is number one key in our decision making.
And so like talking about ACI, because I'm thinking of anyone who maybe doesn't even know what like ACI is. Can you give like an overview of who you guys serve, how long you've been in the space, and just kind of like a quick summary?
Yeah. Yes. So we are into our going into our 20th year.
Congrats,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah, very exciting. So that'll be a big exciting year for us to start celebrating. We service hospitals based mainly in the ERs, anybody that presents into the ER. That's been in a motor vehicle or a workers' comp accident,
Okay.
and so we are the go-between to facilitate the hospital in getting those bills paid, because it is a little bit different than your normal healthcare, that somebody presents with their regular health care. So we educate the staff at the hospitals on how to identify where there's potential additional coverage so that they can send those accounts over to us. And then we try to we don't work for the patient, but we do try to educate the patient on what their role is in it and
Sure.
try to assist. We're not but basically the customer is our hospitals.
Hmm.
And so it's all about education and helping them understand, because it is a lot more complex than your normal
I'm sure.
um, claims. So,
Awesome. And so, you guys serve, uh, I'm sorry, we actually answered one of my questions that I'm looking at it
oh,
here.
okay, good.
So I'm going to the next one in this case. So for recovering revenue for hospitals, that's a huge operational challenge, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So where do you see, if there are, like the biggest inefficiencies in the traditional claims process?
So in the traditional, I mean, now we don't work in that space, but in the complex claims, the reason that it is so complex is because there's so many more steps. There's so many more qualifiers. There's so many more things that are required to get a bill paid. So there's still a lot of manual processes that take place. There's not a lot of electronics still on your MVA side of the world, because you got to
Interesting.
consider, your larger insurance companies you can do electronic billing, but there's smaller companies that you still got to get the bill to them, and you're having to fax or mail or
Interesting.
whatnot.
I'm
Yeah, so
sure
there's a
some
lot
people
of,
are listening to that being like, that's crazy. We're in like
it's crazy.
2025.
Yes, exactly. And then just identifying what's needed. And then the workers' comp side of things, there's more information that's needed. And it's just a different platform, whereas healthcare systems already have their systems set up to bill with your normal, healthcare companies. But it's just it's so much more complex, and every person has the different type of insurance. So we have
Fair.
to know, and then there's attorneys that get involved, and we work with the attorneys. So there's just
Wow.
a lot more that takes place than your normal. So that's what makes it different for us, and that's unique.
And I guess touching on that aspect, since it's more like the complex, like claim side of stuff, like is what's something that I guess the average person doesn't necessarily realize about the financial side of like healthcare and whatnot.
Well, that for our side of the business, it's not very much of a revenue, right? And we kind of say that's around 5% of hospitals' revenue, but such a huge lift for them to bring that additional revenue in when they're looking at they've got tight margins as well, and we hear about it on the news every day that hospitals are struggling. So
Yeah,
every penny counts.
yeah,
So that's something people need to consider. The doors need to stay open regardless of what the healthcare costs, and everybody thinks that it's a system that's very complex, but necessary in order to keep those doors open. So any penny we can bring in to keep those doors and the lights and the bills paid for the hospitals is our goal, as
agreed.
well as helping the patients where they don't, when they get in a car accident, they might not know what their options are to get that bill paid. And so we have the ability to, if there is coverage, to help get the bill paid, so it's not there, they don't have to worry about it anymore. So
Hmm.
that's kind of, I don't know if that helps answer your question.
No, no, absolutely. And like I want to go back into the technology and like data and decision making because I love the era of like technology that we're in with AI and everything. I think it's very cool what's happening. I think it's
Absolutely.
there's some stuff that's happening where it's just like, okay, well, where is this going to go? But I think on the
Right.
business side, there's AI is coming in a lot of areas that are proving to be very efficient for people. It's not necessarily replacing people, but it's allowing people to
Yeah.
do their jobs better. So I'm curious from your perspective, where is, I guess, automation most impactful in the claim recovery workflow, if at all?
Oh, it is. In fact, we pride ourselves on being, a technology company with a human approach. So when we say that, there are certain circumstances where you can't use technology to offset. You've got to educate, you've got to, those types of things. There's different things that you'll never be able to use a computer for.
Right.
But we do identify a lot of items that are just clicks. It's just continuous, the same thing over and over again, updating data fields, updating things like that. So we do have a lot of automations built on that, as well as decision making processes for our team members, where we have taken data from the hospitals that we can drive that decision, so that the staff members don't necessarily have to make the decision. They know when it pops into that workflow based on the data that we got, that this is the next step that needs to take
That's so
place.
cool.
Yeah, so we've definitely been working on that over the years. It's grown, and we've invested a ton of time and money over the next year too, just to continue to grow that process, so that the more that we can find where they don't have to work, they can actually work smarter, not harder,
Sure.
is our goal, and less
That
clicks.
that's awesome. And AI, I'm assuming, is definitely going to help out with that too. And I was talking about this with someone else on another podcast where, companies always have to innovate. They always have to adapt to stay ahead of
Absolutely.
the curve. And back in the day, I feel like, but when it wasn't as technology driven, that adaptation phase was a little bit longer. But nowadays, you have where you have to be able to pivot super quickly with the way how fast everything moves.
Absolutely. We jokingly call ourselves, we go by ACI and internally, and we
Mhm.
jokingly call ourselves always changing incorporated,
That's funny.
because we have such a huge innovation group of people. I mean, everyone in our organization has great ideas. We have emails chains where we can have take in ideas from staff, and our IT team is never they never have a dull moment because we're always coming up with new ways to make it easier. And that excites me, because if we
Yeah,
stay the same, I get very bored. And we have
same.
another group of leaders that are the same way. We like to
Yeah.
find new solutions, and we'll find the problem if we don't already have it. So
That's
just
awesome. And that's probably what obviously has kept you guys in, business for like 20 years at this point too. Like
absolutely.
just that mindset in itself.
Yeah.
Going into like the team building side, as CEO and CFO, you oversee quite a few different departments from like finance, IT, applications, data reporting, field engagement. What does your team look like today? Like, do you guys span out? Like, how does that management necessarily work?
Yeah, we have segregated our operational team. We have an incredibly strong COO. She's just wonderful and really understands the intricacies of the business.
Hmm.
She did consulting in this space, in the revenue cycle for hospitals, so her knowledge is just so vast. So she runs a team of 5 VPs that run the different regions, and it
Gotcha.
goes down into different leadership structures. And then we also have a director of our HR and professional development, and then several team members on that manage our training, our recruiting, all the things that go along with that. The culture responsibilities that we have, because we're big on our culture. So
Right.
that's the team there. And then we have a strong IT of probably 7 or 8 people internally that, and most of our staff, and when I say in our leadership team, I say on average we have from 8 to 15 years that have been with ACI. So these are long
Wow. That's
timers.
great.
Yes, and everyone in our organization in that leadership role has started from the ground up,
I
outside
love
of
that.
your special circumstances. But so that I think helps drive how strong we are as an organization. You've got loyalty, you've got knowledge, and you've got and then as those team groups, we all work together so well as
Sure.
leaders. And like I said, we meet constantly. We're always chatting each other in groups. We do things together as groups, even though we're all over the country. But we do meet and get together. In fact, we have a leadership conference next week. We do annually, so that we all.
Oh no, I lost you for a quick second. Let's see if this reconnects. Okay, wait. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
I
That's
lost
okay
it.
because
Yes.
I can have my team essentially cut out the dead zones of it.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
we were last talking about just before the little pause happened. We were last talking about your teams being you guys essentially meet up still. You have a leadership conference coming up, and that's kind of where I lost you at that point.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, just, we try to, like I said, we try to get together face to face. And then with that leadership conference, we really focus on our strategic plans for the next year. We
Gotcha.
celebrate our big wins for this past year, but then we also open up the dialogue so our leaders, our assistant managers and our managers can bring ideas to the table that we haven't considered. So
Right.
lots of back and forth communication is key and critical in keeping our team strong.
And because you're saying the leadership team has been with ACI for years at that point. That's like every company's dream is to bring in leadership from the ground up because obviously that's the stronger an organization gets when you have people who've been a part of it for that long.
Absolutely, absolutely. We definitely pride ourselves on that, and I know it's cliche to say we're like a family, but we really do care about each other and want to build each other up and work well as a team, and are willing to jump in no matter what it is, even if
Hmm.
it's another region and there's a fire at a hospital. We definitely have leaders that say, "Okay, we're going to bring some people over and support and do what we have to do to support that customer." Because at the end of the day, our customer's number one,
Right.
and we all know that and pride ourselves, and that's a goal. Is that no matter what, we're all one team.
I love
So
that. Love
yeah.
and I'm not too familiar with like the workforce style, especially like in claims, for example. do you guys hire often? Is there high retention? Maybe not on the leadership sides, but maybe on like entry or medium level roles. Do you typically have a retention issue?
We don't. I mean, we have, there's always going to be,
Yeah,
attrition, no matter what. Some people just don't fit the culture. They don't like the change, and that's okay. We don't
mhm,
want people to stay that aren't
of course.
happy. But we do recruit a lot, and that's generally but it's when growing.
Right.
Very rarely are we, it seems like we're always recruiting, but it's generally with a new contract.
Fair.
We do replace some, but typically what that looks like, it's usually within the first 6 months, whether or not someone's going to stay or not. And
Of
so,
course.
and that's okay,
Right.
but yeah, but we have a strong recruiting team that goes through a process. We actually use some outside sources to recognize culture and people's different,
Mhm.
personalities, because we know what's going to fit for each region too. So we monitor
Sure.
our own personalities and what works for us. So
Right.
we kind of know
Makes
ahead of time if you're going to fit or not.
makes sense. And is there because some companies have, they obviously they mass recruit or they're always bringing in people every year. There's always like for most companies, there's always like a specific role that is typically the hardest to fill. Do you guys like have that at same or did you notice the same across the board?
It's more regionally. So the role itself it's pretty standard, and we don't have trouble. But there's certain regions that we struggle in. And I say that in the fact that we have some facilities that we actually still we staff on site, very few
Sure.
still, but that was our original model. And in those circumstances, a lot of time we struggle just because people don't want to go into and work on
Fair.
site anymore. So,
Or like
but
the
other than
environment.
yeah, exactly. And it's a hard environment. So outside of that, no, we don't really struggle. I mean, it's the ebbs and flows of the market though,
Right.
and who's out looking. But I think that we have a pretty good process, and it just depends on the day, honestly. Lately, we've had some great candidates and some great new hires. So,
Love that. So going into growth, like strategic growth, financing, scaling, you've helped organizations reduce debt while growing quite aggressively too. How do you approach, I guess, financial discipline during expansions? Because I feel like that's something most companies, I won't say struggle with, but it's not always their forte.
hmm we take a good couple months working on our budgets for the year and planning. In fact, we started next year's budgets and forecast and planning a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
And most, I know that's typical, but we spend a lot of time doing that. We get feedback from our department heads. We also drive a lot of decisions in the leadership. Incentive plans to make better decisions and not just throw people on. We can find other alternatives.
Sure.
We're very tight on our spending when needed. They used to joke I'm CFO. Um,
It's so funny, actually.
so unless you can prove to me there's value and a good ROI on it, then I would say no.
Right.
So it's just really monitoring those financials, keeping our expenses down where we can, but also recognizing there's times to invest where needed. And then I was all in that budget process. I evaluate it every month to see like where do we sit? Can we afford to pay on this? And then over that time, was able to pay down our debt so that we would not have that down the road. And
Right.
so um, it's really monitoring and keeping close eye on it, and also setting that expectation that when I do say no, there's a reason. You
Right.
need to prove to me again if it really is necessary. Come back and prove to me why.
Right.
So that I think that's played a big role in that process.
Absolutely. And definitely I mean, finances are the lifeblood of a
Oh,
business. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
it's people, it's funny because some people try to not pay as much attention to it while still paying attention to it. In reality, it's like, it is like, yes, you have the missions of a business and whatnot, but at the end of the day, finance is what makes the business flow and go. Without it, you're kind of just a hobby at that point.
Absolutely. It's like the heartthrob of the organization. Like
Yeah.
you have to have the visibility too, and have some good software to capture the information on the fly as well. That's critical.
On the fly. So like, do you mean like just like real time, like as stuff is happening?
Yes, absolutely. As best that you can, right?
Right.
So we have, daily, all transactions are coming in daily. We have daily postings of things for our customers, so that we at least have a visual of where we're going for the month, so that I'm not surprised at the end of the month if we don't have a good month. You
Right.
know what I
Makes
mean?
sense. You can at least
Um,
prepare yourself if it's going to be good or great at the end of the day.
Correct, correct. Yeah. And then that goes back to following those KPIs. You can know 3 months in advance if we're going to have a bad month based
Sure.
on the life cycle of a claim. So, and so then if that's the case, we try to figure out what is it we can do to fix that before that even happens. And then, so
Gotcha. So it's a lot of like quote unquote like future planning. Like you're making decisions for things that are potentially happening 5 months later, but you're trying to make the
correct.
decision now.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
So going into when stepping into like a leadership role or like restructuring a department, is there a first thing or first couple things that you try to analyze?
Yeah, we do. Devin, our COO, is really good at that as well. We kind of sit down and collaborate and just kind of we have a Visio, truthfully, as simple as it may seem, but we use Visios and like add the
Let's do
number.
it. That's dope.
Yeah, I mean, as the number of claims, really kind of look at it from a holistic view as we get new regions or new facilities and really kind of see where the bandwidth lies and who, and also based on the knowledge, because every region has some different skill sets. So if we get a new facility, we not necessarily where it sits, but also what type of state mandates there are and whatnot. So where are they going to fit in that region? And then we just kind of based on where we have in the bench and where we need to promote people and move people. And then we get with our VP team to make sure they're on
Mhm.
board because that's critical to have their buy-in in that process of the transition. And then that's how it works. And then we put it
Interesting.
out there. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And so would you feel like, or do you have like an opinion on what's the most like underestimated part of scaling a business in like the healthcare finance space? That's something that people wouldn't necessarily, I guess, be the first thing on their to-do list, if there is
Uh,
even.
well, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think, just always being prepared for those emergencies. I mean, because in the healthcare space, there's always something that each different facility is looking at, and you think what the KPI is important to them that day or that month, and
Hmm.
then the next month it might be something completely different because of some decision that's been pushed down from their leadership group. So we have to pivot
Gotcha.
our structures based on what it is that they're expecting. We have our set KPIs that we expect, but
Hmm.
they might have something different that comes about because of things going on in the industry. So that's really the only thing I could think of. But no, yeah,
So like more so like preparing yourself for things not to be aligned across different teams.
correct,
Okay.
correct, and that
And
is true. That happens. Every facility has a different expectation too. So
wow, okay.
um, you know, we set our minimum standards, but there might be a facility in New Jersey that's more interested in AR and doesn't really care about revenue. So they want to get things,
Interesting.
and that's not a specific example, but that's just
Right.
that's kind of the thing that happens where we're sitting here focused on getting the revenue in. They might care about getting it off their books and writing it off. So we have to
Gotcha.
have that constant communication with the hospital to say, what is your priority? Is it the revenue or is it cleaning up your AR? Because some of these claims can take 18 months to get a payment in. So
Right. So do you notice, I mean, like when you're working at like that scale, do you notice that's a thing where the priority of the customer isn't necessarily like as clear as what we may think it may be? Because when you're small, I feel like it's easy to know that, but when you're larger, is that common?
I think that we are pretty aware only because we have such good relationships with our customers and there's constant communication. I think if
Sure.
you don't have that, you're going to miss the boat on that. I think that it is imperative that there is a relationship in some sort with every customer and those constant meetings and expectation conversations because it is so different across every system.
Okay.
And so if you aren't, as you grow, if you don't continue that type of relationship and personal relationship with your customers, then you're going to miss that. And then you're going to fail for that customer because you're not bringing, you think what they want and you don't.
Interesting.
So that's imperative.
I like that a lot because there's a lot of different. I mean, I see it on LinkedIn every day. It's fun. I don't know why I came up with this analogy, but it's like you always get a LinkedIn message of someone pitching you something for your
Yeah.
company, and they're like, "Hey, like we can help you with this," and like how do you even know if I have
I
this
don't even know.
information?
Right.
It's like you're
Yes, I
just
get.
assuming.
Yes, that is true. They get a lot of that.
Yeah,
So
and that's the I feel like that's such a strong piece of advice too. Is just like really because at the end of the day, every successful business is literally just solving a problem. Like they're solving a
exactly.
complex problem. But if you try to assume you know what the problem is, you may end up
Right.
solving nothing at the end of the day.
Right. Exactly. Right. Or solving the thing that they don't care about and leaving the problem
Exactly.
on the
And then
table.
you
But
spend all this time, money, and resources on
right.
it, and you're just like, well, that wasn't even the problem. And you're like, what do you
Yes.
mean?
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
So okay, so looking ahead
Mhm.
for ACI, one thing is crazy that we're at the end of 2025, which
I
it's
know.
crazy to say we're coming up. It feels like the year just started for me. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie,
I
but like
know. I know.
it,
I jokingly say Happy Easter.
it's funny because like you do so much throughout the year
Yeah.
that it feels like only a few months have really gone by, but we're really
Absolutely.
sitting in November. Like it's going to be December next in like less than or in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I guess for ACI for the next coming years, like what's next for you guys? Or is there things you're focusing on or trying to improve on?
Yeah, we're trying to we've focused so heavily on our compliance. Compliance is huge in the healthcare space. So we
Okay,
continuously are going to be focusing on that, and continuing to invest in technology to ensure that we have the securities and measures in place so that our hospitals aren't concerned about breaches, because that was a
sure,
big deal in the past 2 years. So that's one thing. But over the next years, we focused the past few years on really building that solid structure and getting that technology in place in our culture and all the things that need to happen to be able to grow. So the
okay,
next 3 to 5 years is focused on growth and moving into markets that we aren't currently in. We're investing in our sales team and our marketing and really kind of in getting to know people outside of the span of people that we already know, and learn and kind of partnering with some new strategic partners and things like that. So our goal is growth, but into areas that we've not been in, or that we might be in, but not have the market,
sure.
share of. So that's kind of the goal.
Okay,
Um, yeah,
awesome. And then
yeah,
so how do you see technology, I guess, shaping the future of claims recovery and like hospital finance? Because I'm sure obviously it's embedded in it right now, but as the next few years happen, it's probably going to increase.
Yeah, I think continued build on electronic claim processing is huge. I think I know from a healthcare space, a lot of AI is being utilized for denying and approving claims. I don't know what that looks like in the workers' comp and the MBA space, because
Sure.
they're maybe the last ones on board to join that group, but it's definitely something we're keeping an eye on. But I think just always knowing what's out there, being involved and going to the conferences to see what the hospitals are doing, and we just have to be prepared. But also we're constantly meeting with Oracle or different software companies to see what is it out there that we don't know about that could definitely help us
Right.
enhance our processes, because at the end of the day we want to get the money faster, quicker, and better, and the most that we can get for our customers.
Right. Love that. And
Mhm.
finally, this is like my last question here. When you think about, I guess, your journey, is if is there like a legacy that's or something you hope to leave as a leader, whether it's in the company or just for yourself?
Yeah, one thing that I hope that my legacy is that I was kind, and that I gave everyone time for space to think and to grow. I am an open door leader. I tell everyone my door's open. Anyone, no matter what, can call me, and whatever they need. I am one that likes to get my hands dirty. And I think to be a good leader, you have to be willing to jump in and help where needed, and also learn and do what they're doing.
Hmm.
So I hope that people see that that's who I was as a leader, or am as a leader, and that my goal is to teach anyone to take my job. That is my goal. But also to inspire people to get out and try new things, because the only way you're going to find your happiness in your career path is to try those new things. It's so important. And
Right.
I think a lot of people just get stuck in a job and don't pay attention to that, and then they're miserable down the road. Get
Yeah.
out there, put your
Yeah.
feet in, dabble in different things, and find what makes you thrive.
I love that. Yeah, and I 100% agree. There's people who they just jump into a career, especially really early on, and they
Yeah,
think that that's it for the rest of their life. And I'm like, well, there's so many different opportunities, so many different
right.
things, and you never know till you try it. You never know
You
till you
never
put your feet
know.
in the water.
Yeah. Yep. And then the only other thing is just honesty. I think honesty is key, and transparency. That's one of the things I try to be with our teams. And there's times when you can't be fully transparent because you
Sure.
have to. It's just the
Right.
nature of it. But where you can, it's the best way to do it, and to answer the why. Because if you answer the why, people jump on board and want to help. So
Love that. Great way to end the podcast. So Jane, thank you again for coming on. I think
thank
it's been
you.
an incredible conversation. Is it okay if I leave like your LinkedIn in the description if anyone wants
Absolutely.
to reach out or connect? Um,
Absolutely.
Super incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights, your philosophy, the work you guys are doing. If there's anything, if anyone ever wants to reach out to you, like I said, I'll put your LinkedIn in there. I'll put Accelerated Claims as well if anyone wants to
Yeah.
check out. But again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Everyone who's listening, appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Founders Table.